Now, the late Bob Hawke was Australia's longest-serving Labor Prime Minister, a respected leader who was much loved, and he had a truly infectious personality.
I tell you what, any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up to die is a bum.
That iconic line, just one example of Bob Hawke connecting with the Australian public.
I've made no attempt to hide my character.
The beer-sculling PM proving just that on multiple occasions.
Listen, they're going skull, skull, skull. And the great man Bobby Hawke nailed it.
He could mix with anyone, from President Ronald Reagan in the White House...
Hey, look at this guy. How about that?
...to your average Joe, his approval rating once peaking at 75%.
I just love Australia and I love Australians. I mean, I love them passionately.
By his side, dependable wife and writer Blanche Dalpuget, who he married in 1995 and continues his legacy.
As you pass by that billabong, you'll come out, sing Matilda with me.
Beautiful. And now Bob Hawke's widow is releasing an updated and intimate, complete biography of her late husband. And I'm so pleased to say that Blanche Dalpuget joins us down the studio. Good morning to you, Blanche.
Good morning,
You're
David.
watching that video very closely.
Yes.
Still in strong voice.
Yes, but it was getting a bit worn out by then.
yeah.
He was pretty old by then when he was seeing it. Yeah.
So why did you choose to re-release the biography, to add to it? Because it's such a wonderful, wonderful book that you've written.
Because it was... I had to bring it up 10 years.
Had to update it.
Update it by 10 years, yes.
And how did you find the process? Was
Look
it
at the
I know it's
size of
heavy
it.
going,
It's
isn't
a
it?
house brick. You could kill a burglar with it.
I love your cheek. But how did you find the process of writing it? Was it difficult or was it helpful to deal with the grief?
Well, it was both. Writing about Bob's death nearly killed me. It was so terrible. But as you probably know, writing is rewriting. So by the time I'd polished it 5 times, I was kind of able to cope with it. But it was really... I was crying the first time I was writing.
I bet. It would have been such a difficult process to go through. And we feel as though... I mean, looking back at that package, and we feel as though we, as all Australians, know so much about him. But were there any surprises that you have revealed in the final chapters that you've written?
I think I'll keep that for the
come
readers.
on, come on!
No!
Just a teaser.
Don't be a spoiler.
But he was such a larger-than-life character.
Yes.
And in terms of his own final chapter, did he express to you how he wanted Australians to perceive him?
Not straight up, but I knew how he wanted Australians to perceive him, and that was as somebody who loved Australia, loved Australians, and did everything he could to make their lives better. And he did that for millions and millions of people.
He knew how much we loved him, didn't he?
Yes, yes.
Because that was expressed in the wonderful memorial service too, which was a celebration of his life. That's what he wanted, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
What was it like for you being there? Because you had such a strong presence and such a strong involvement in the service itself. But for you, it must have been really heartening to have so many people out there in force.
It was wonderful, but I was kind of out of my body. I had no idea what I was going to say when I went on stage.
Is that right?
Yeah, I hadn't prepared anything except the name of the people I had to thank. And then I didn't know what I'd say after that.
Well, it was wonderful for us to all feel as though we could be part of it. And what were the final moments, I suppose, and weeks with Bob? Because you were there as his carer to the very end. You've said it was a very wonderful time that you both had together.
Well, it was, because as his body vanished, as it were, became more and more useless, his spirit or his soul came out more and more. So I was dealing with this beautiful, pure human being. It was really gorgeous. We used to say how lucky we were that we had that love of old age and just a pure love which didn't have any other agendas.
Yeah. And you got to say your goodbyes, which is what a lot of people don't get to do when their great loves do pass.
That's a tragic thing for people whose partners die from, say, a heart attack or suddenly or in hospital unexpectedly. But I was really lucky that I was there with him at the right through.
And how important was it for Bob to also reconcile in the way that he did with people like Paul Keating? You know, he spent time obviously very much with you, but with so many of the other people that he worked with, his friends and colleagues too.
Well, reconciling with Paul was terrifically important to him emotionally, and I think it was to Paul too. And they just sort of clicked back into place as the old team, and they talked about what a great team they'd been, and actually how few had been their disagreements until the challenge. And really the press beat that up, and a lot of what was published about their relationship was in fact fake news.
Is that right? And
Yeah.
it was wonderful to see them actually spending time together, having a yarn.
Yes.
Just very much true friendship coming through at the end.
True friendship and true admiration on both sides.
And how are you coping as well, personally? Because you've had to deal with so much.
Well, until last week I wasn't coping all of that,
that right?
well. I'd get into an Uber and the Uber driver would say, "Oh," recognise me and commiserate, and then I'd
And that'd
go,
set you
I'd
off.
boo-hoo, boo-hoo, and then the driver would be, "Oh, madam, I didn't mean to upset you." "Oh, no, it's all right."
But I guess you've got focus back again in that you're talking about the book, you're talking about this great love, this great
Yes.
man,
Yes.
and that's helping you to look to your own future.
Yes, but I can't see what that is yet. I've still got too much stuff to do because I've had to sell the house.
You have.
And I've moved into the city. I'm learning the city. And I'm learning to do all sorts of things I couldn't do before.
Are you? Like what?
Well, Bob did have a driver.
Oh, so you've got to drive. Blanche is out and about on the roads. Look out. Well, it is so wonderful to see you, and we thank you for sharing with us, Bob, because we feel as though we know him and love him, and we thank the fact that you were able to share so much of his life.
Thanks, Deb. I hope people don't break their wrists.
It's a wonderful read. Well done, you. And it's available
you.
in all good bookstops today. Bob Hawke, The Complete Biography by Blanche Del Puget. Wonderful.